The endocrine system. What is the endocrine system and how is it organized? The endocrine system works in conjunction with the nervous system to send and receive messages throughout the body to maintain homeostasis. The endocrine system includes all of the glands that secrete hormones. These hormones are responsible for a variety of tasks, for maintaining temperature, to controlling digestion, to developing reproductive capabilities. The glands of the endocrine system include the pineal gland, the parathyroid, and the thyroid glands, the pancreas, the female reproductive glands, like the ovaries and the uterus, the male reproductive glands called the testes, the kidneys, these two kidney bean-like structures towards the back. Right on top of the kidneys are the adrenal glands, the thyroid is over here, and the thymus is right here, and the pituitary gland. These glands and hormones form a communication pathway for the brain and all of the organs in the body. These ductless organs have a short-lived, so they can be short-lived or they can have a long-term effect on the body, depending on the gland. Skin and fat tissue may also have some endocrine function. The basic units of the system have special glands. Unlike other glands, the endocrine system secrete their products called hormones directly into the bloodstream. The powerful hormones travel everywhere in the body, influencing every aspect of life in very specific ways. Many parts of the body secrete hormones, but 6 major types of glands are of particular importance to adults. They are islets of Langerhans inside the pancreas, the thyroid and parathyroid adrenals, gonads, and in the head, the pituitary glands. Every major endocrine glands are highly structured organs. Throughout each run the smallest blood vessel, capillaries. Hormones are secreted through the capillaries. Through a microscope, it is possible to see red blood cells running through the capillaries and veins. Hormones, however, are not actually visible. They are in solution with blood plasma, as salt is in solution with seawater and is invisible. The hormones enter the general circulation. Eventually, they filter back into the capillaries elsewhere in the body. Unlike red blood cells, hormones travel freely through the capillary walls. Though they travel everywhere in the body, the hormones influence specific target cells. However, a hormone may have relatively few targets, affecting only a few kinds of cells. A different hormone may affect nearly every cell in the body. Every target cell has a chemical receptor, which the hormone specifically fits, as the key to a specific lock. A receptor may be on the surface of the cell, or inside it. A cell that is not a target to a specific hormone has no receptors for it. and is not affected by it. Hormones act as chemical messengers and are secreted into the bloodstream by the endocrine glands produced around the body. Each hormone acts only upon specific types of cells, those bearing the correct member receptor sites. These are the target cells for the hormones. Within the bloodstream, there are other many hormones. When specific receptor sites are not filled, they remain turned off. As hormones attach to receptor sites, they initiate the switch-on reaction inside the cytoplasm. This reaction is usually the production of the chemical cyclic adenosine monophosphate. Cyclic AMP acts as a messenger within the cell to activate the cell's production lines. The activity in the bloodstream of some hormones, such as adrenaline, may last for only 10 minutes. Others, including some sex hormones, have a longer life. Hormones may be inactivated by the target cells or by the liver, and the bring down products, when their actions have been completed, are excreted or reused in the further manufacture of hormones. Many of the body's most basic body functions are regulated by the endocrine system, with 8 endocrine glands located in different parts of the body. The endocrine system constantly and quietly does its work, secreting liquid chemical messengers called hormones. Here in the pancreas, the hormone called insulin is produced and secreted into the blood when levels of sugar and glucose become too high. The pancreas increases production of insulin. Chemicals in the insulin cause body cells to open, allowing more glucose to enter the cells, stabilizing the amount of glucose in the blood, and maintaining adequate energy on the cells.
Within the base of the forebrain is the hypothalamus, a region of the brain that integrates information from the rest of the body and regulates most of the body's endocrine systems. An example of an endocrine system regulated by the hypothalamus is the hypothalamo-pituitary axis. Some neurons between the hypothalamus produce and secrete thyrotropin-releasing hormones, or TRH. TRH is secreted in the hypothalamo-hypophyseal-portal vessels and carried in the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland, where it stimulates cells that makes thyroid-stimulating hormones, or TSH. TRH stimulates the release of the TSH from the anterior lobe of the pituitary. TSH enters the bloodstream and is carried into the thyroid gland. With the thyroid gland, TSH stimulates the production and release of thyroxine, hormone that regulates the metabolic rate of all the cells in the body. In addition, in regulating our metabolic rate, thyroxine inhibits the TRH-containing neurons within the hypothalamus. This in addition results in decreased release of TRH, and thus a decrease in secretion of TSH and thyroxine. This is called negative feedback loop and occurs frequently in the endocrine system.
Soon after a meal, the digestive system starts to break down the food you have eaten. The carbohydrates in this food are broken down into a single sugar called glucose. As this glucose is absorbed from your digestive system into your bloodstream, your blood sugar level increases. Your circulatory system then carries the glucose to muscle cells throughout your body, where it is used to generate energy. And here's the important part. In order to get that glucose that is now in your bloodstream into your muscle cell, you need to have insulin present to trigger that uptake event. Insulin is a small protein hormone produced by your pancreas. As the concentration of glucose in your bloodstream rises, your pancreas senses this increase and is stimulated to release insulin into the bloodstream. The newly released insulin plays a key role in regulating the concentration of glucose in your blood, a process known as glucose homeostasis. The insulin that is now released into your bloodstream binds to the extracellular domain of receptor proteins found on the surface of liver, muscle, and fat cells. This binding triggers the autophosphorylation of the intracellular domains, which in turn phosphorylate a specific substrate signaling protein. This protein then phosphorylates other downhill signaling proteins, leading to an amplification of the signal at each step. This overall signaling process is also known as signal transduction cascade. One important consequence of this signal cascade is the movement of glucose transport proteins, called GLUTs, towards the cell surface. As these storage vesicles fuse with the cell membrane, the number of GLUTs present on the surface of the cell increase, allowing the glucose to enter the cell. As a result, the glucose concentration in the cell decreases. The glucose is now inside the cell, where it can be metabolized to generate the energy in the form of ATP that is needed in all of your cells.
When the blood calcium ions level drops below the set point, the parathyroids release PTH into the blood. PTH stimulates the release of calcium ions from bones and increases calcium ions reabsorption by the kidneys. The kidneys also play an indirect role in calcium homeostasis, which involves vitamin D. We obtain this vitamin in inactive form from food and also from chemical reactions in our skin when it is exposed to sunlight. Transported in the blood, inactive vitamin D undergoes sequential steps of activation in the liver and kidneys. The active form of vitamin D, secreted by the kidneys, acts as a hormone. It stimulates the intestines to increase uptake of calcium ions from food. The combined effects of PTH on bones, kidneys, and intestines result in a higher calcium ion level in the blood. A rise in blood calcium ion above the set point induces the thyroid gland to secrete calcitonin. Calcitonin, in turn, has two main effects. It causes more calcium ions to be deposited into the bones, and it makes the kidneys reabsorb less calcium ions as they form urine. The result is a lower calcium ion level in the blood.
This animation shows how your thyroid glands can become underactive, causing a condition known as underactive thyroid or hypothyroidism. Here we show the position of the thyroid gland. Your thyroid gland produces two hormones. These hormones are called triiodothyronine or T3 and thyroxine or T4. The two hormones are released from your thyroid glands and into your bloodstream. They play an important role in controlling the rate of metabolism, the chemical reactions that take place in your body. The amount of the hormones, T3 and T4, that your thyroid gland produces is controlled by your pituitary gland, which is in your brain. Your pituitary gland produces a hormone called thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH. TSH stimulates your thyroid gland to produce the thyroid hormones. An underactive thyroid or hypothyroidism is most often caused by a problem in the thyroid gland itself. It can also occur because the pituitary gland is not producing enough TSH, but this is less common. Your symptoms will depend on how much of the thyroid hormone your body is producing. You may not notice any symptoms at first. As your thyroid gland becomes less active, you may begin to feel more tired and put on weight. Some types of underactive thyroids can cause a swelling in the neck. This is called goiter. Here we show what goiter looks like. Not everyone who has this underactive thyroid will have this swelling. Diabetes type 2 is the most common form of diabetes. Although it can occur at any age, it is more common on people who are overweight, sedentary, and over middle age. Glucose is the main source of energy for body cells. When blood sugar levels rise, as is normal after a meal, the pancreas gland located behind the stomach secretes the hormone insulin. Insulin enters and circulates in the blood and acts on the insulin receptors present in fat cells, muscle cells, and other types of tissues. Binding of insulin to these receptors causes the glucose transporters to come to the cell surface. This facilitates the entry of glucose into these cells. In diabetes type 2, the production of insulin is low, and sometimes they may be resistant to insulin. The circulating insulin fails to facilitate the absorption of glucose into the cells and to keep the blood glucose level at optimum level. This results to the rise of blood glucose level. The excess in blood glucose reacts with proteins in tissues to form what are known as advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. AGEs create an inflammatory condition in the vasculature, which causes heart disease and damage to other organs, such as the kidneys. Diabetes can eventually cause damage to the heart, arteries, kidneys, nerves, eyes, and skin. During periods of stress, such as preparing to run in a race, the brain signals the adrenal glands to produce adrenaline or epinephrine. Epinephrine increases the rate in which the heart beats. In turn, the increased cardiac output supplies more oxygen, putting the body in a heightened state to react. As a longer-term response to stress, cortisol is released by the adrenal glands, promoting the release of energy. What is the purpose of the gonads? The gonads are a fancy term for the sperm and egg producing organs of the male reproductive system and the female reproductive system. These two pairs of organs are also viewed as part of the endocrine system due to the fact that in addition to producing gametes, which is their primary function, they also produce hormones. So, what gametes and what hormones do this reproductive system produce? In the male reproductive system, the testes, the gonads of the male reproductive system, produce testosterone. Testosterone produces secondary sex characteristics during puberty, including broader shoulders, narrower hips, deep voice, pubic hair, chest hair, facial hair, and is also important for producing their other purpose of the testes, which is sperm cells. Similar to the testes in males, the females have two organs that are their gonads, called the ovaries. These are almond-shaped organs located outside the uterus and inside the body that produce hormones called estrogen and progesterone. These are also steroid hormones that produce secondary sex characteristics such as breast and mammary glands, wider hips, softer skin, higher pitched voice, and pubic hair. The estrogen and progesterone are also responsible for that time in the month and for helping eggs or ova mature and is more scientifically known as the ovulation cycle. Remember that the purpose of the gonads are both endocrine and reproductive in function.
If you begin to develop low blood sugar, that's called hypoglycemia. Signs are sweating, lightheadedness, getting shaky, weak, anxious. Whoa, whoa, whoa! I'm really hungry, bro. That's another symptom. Oh, and I have a headache, bro. Headaches, trouble concentrating, and thinking clearly are all signs. You need some sugar to get your glucose up. Here you go. Mmm, yeah. You always need to have sugar in handy in case your blood sugar drops too low. Ooh, thank you very much, bro. Hormones play important roles in all vertebrates. Example of these hormones is prolactin. Prolactin performs several important functions related to childbirth. Other functions of prolactin are it regulates fat metabolism and reproduction, it stimulates movement toward water in preparation for breeding and affects metamorphosis, and it helps regulate salt and water balance. All of the following are good examples of how evolution can both preserve unity and promote diversity.